Thank you for your interest in NAHMA's National Recognition and Awards Program, the Communities of Quality Program. In today's webinar, we would like to take the mystery, fear, dread, and anxiety out of the COQ application process. We're also going to help you pre-qualify your property before you do the paperwork. We will identify obstacles, if any, and ways to overcome them. And finally, we're going to help you make a plan with a target date for submitting your COQ application. Because you've decided to watch this webinar, you've probably already decided that the COQ designation is a good idea. But let's review the reasons why you would want to apply. Affordable housing providers who create safe, attractive, well-maintained properties that are neighborhood assets deserve to be recognized for their outstanding achievements. When your property meets NAHMA's high standards in physical maintenance, financial management, programs and services, employee credentials, and other criteria, it becomes a member of an elite group. COQ properties qualify for regional and national awards, a listing in an online registry of the country's top affordable properties, and the use of COQ marketing materials. So let's get started. Does your property qualify for COQ recognition? To find out, we're going to go through a preliminary checklist. The preliminary checklist covers all the categories that are on the application itself, but in a simpler format. The first thing on our checklist is NAHMA membership. Is your property an NAHMA member, or is your management agent a NAHMA member? Membership is not required, but non-members are subject to a higher application fee. Secondly, let's talk about size. If your property is under 50 units, then in certain categories, small property point minimums will apply. Or if your property is 50 units or over, then in certain categories, large property point minimums will apply. Let's take a moment to talk about the point system. I will be focusing on minimum point requirements that you will need in order for your property to receive Communities of Quality recognition. However, it is possible to get more points than the minimums, and the reason to do this is that achieving certain levels of points makes your property eligible for national awards. So in order to compete for those national awards, you have to achieve a higher point total than if you were going to apply just for the recognition. But again, I will be focusing on minimum totals needed for recognition throughout this webinar. There are many ways for your property to achieve minimum points in the physical inspection category. That's because there are many different types of properties. If your property is subject to REAC and the last inspection score was at least 80, you will achieve the minimum points required for this category. If your property is not subject to REAC and the last physical inspection rating that you received from another agency was at least satisfactory or pass, you will achieve the minimum points needed in this category. And here are some examples of non-REAC inspections. The next area to consider is management reviews. If your project is subject to management reviews through HUD or your PBCA, and your last MOR rating was at least satisfactory, then you will achieve the minimum points required in this category. If your property is not subject to MORs, and the last management or operations review rating that you received from another monitoring agency was at least satisfactory or pass, you will also meet the minimum point requirement in this category. Or perhaps your property is not subject to MORs or any other agency management or operations review. You can still qualify by providing copies of compliance certificates and reports showing that your property is maintaining continuous compliance with regulations. Financial management is a category where there are several ways to achieve the minimum points. If your property's reserve for replacement is at least 90% funded, that will get you the minimum points needed in this category. Or, if your rent collection rate is at least 90%, that will also achieve you the minimum points required. If your property's on-time rent collection is at least 80%, that is another source of points for this category. And if your property is subject to a certified audit and the last certified audit reported no findings, there are points to be had there as well. Notice that all of these are labeled and/or, and that's to show that you can get any one of these things or a combination of these things to achieve a higher point score than the minimum required. Another important criteria is credentials. Staff members affiliated with the property have to have sufficient credentials to achieve minimum points for the property size. It is important to know what we mean by affiliated with the property. Affiliated with the property is defined as a staff person who does some work on behalf of the property, on-site or off-site, that directly impacts the operation or management of that property in some way. So this could be an on-site property manager or assistant manager or leasing agent or maintenance person. It could also be a compliance manager or director. It could be a regional or district manager and various other employees who are impacting directly the operation or management of the property. This is a category where the size of your property matters. A small property must achieve 10 points in this category. A large property must achieve 20. Let's take a look at how the credentials are scored. NAHMA credentials are worth from 5 to 15 points per credential. The first credential is the National Affordable Housing Professional or the NAP executive level. Any staff affiliated with the property, as we earlier defined, that holds one of these designations can be counted. So you would have perhaps 3 people that hold this designation. Each one is worth 10 points. That would give you 30 points. If your company holds the Specialist in Housing Credit Management Company designation, that's worth 15 points, and that would be a company-held designation. A Certified Professional of Occupancy or CPO designation is worth 5 points. The Specialist in Housing Credit Management is worth 5. The Fair Housing Certification credential is worth 5. And then we also give points for credentials from other organizations, such as the Certified Property Manager designation, which is worth 4 points. The RAM, CAM, COS, and many other credentials are worth 3 points. For a complete list, we have to look at the application. The next item is programs and services. Your property has to offer a certain number of programs and services in a year, depending on the size of your property. If you have a small property, again that's under 50 units, you have to demonstrate that you have offered 6 programs or services per year. If you are a large property, 50 units or more, then you have to demonstrate that you have offered 9 programs or services per year. Let's take a quick look at examples of some of the programs and services that you might be offering that could get you these points. After school, summer meals, kids to camp, drug-free kid poster contest, pool party, holiday party, school supplies, Thanksgiving food baskets, 12-step meetings, mental health support group, book club, Bible study, holiday door decorating contest, English as a second language class, senior citizen socials, Medicare informational program, a basketball camp, spring break activity days, job fair, job skills class, parenting class, Crime Watch meeting, exercise program, walking club, neighborhood network, service coordinator, or if your staff does local community volunteer work, you can get points for that. Computer training, the sky is the limit. The next category is endorsements. Your property has to obtain written endorsements in 2 of the following formats: resident letters, letters from staff members, letters or awards from the community or local, letters or awards from state agencies or legislators, resident survey results, or other. Endorsements are letters stating what a fine property you have, and these are very easy to obtain for most properties. The next category is photographs and reports, and some of this refers back to the other categories that we've already discussed. Your property must be able to provide copies of each of the following: 6 recent photographs of the property with captions, copies of the reports used to achieve the points for the physical inspection section, copies of the reports used to achieve the points for the management review section, a copy of the auditor's letter from the certified audit report, or copies of whatever other reports were used to achieve points in the financial management section. Take a look at your preliminary checklist. What were the results? I hope that your property qualified, and now all you need to do is gather the documentation and fill out the application form. Or you may have identified that you came up short in one or more categories, so what you need to do now is to go through those specific categories and develop a plan to move your property towards qualifying. Perhaps it's that you didn't offer enough programs and services. That's an easy thing to correct. Just begin doing that and be sure that you keep flyers of what you have done. Perhaps you are short credential points. Then that's a good time to get together with your staff and motivate some people to go out and get some credentials so that you can meet that point requirement. Let's go to the NAHMA homepage and see where we will access the information that we need in order to complete the application. On the NAHMA homepage, there's a category at the top, a tab called Communities of Quality. We're going to click on that, and that will take us to this page, which is a detailed beginning page about the Communities of Quality program. From this page, we're going to click on Recognition Program, which will take us to this page, which has a listing of the various components of the recognition program. And the first thing we need is the application form. So we will now click on COQ National Recognition Program Application and begin looking at how to fill out the form. The first page asks you to tell about the applicant. There you're going to put in the name of the property, the address, the property manager, the entry contact and title, phone number, fax, and email. You will also list the name of the management company, the street address, city, state, and zip, the contact and title, phone, fax, email, and whether or not the management company is a nonprofit or a for-profit entity. On this page, you tell about the owner of the property. It's possible that this information will be the same as the management company, but if not, you'll have different information here. Name of the property owner, the street address, city, state, zip, contact and title, phone number, fax, email, and is the property owner a nonprofit or a for-profit entity? Then we ask you to tell us about the property. First, we want to know the type of financing or subsidy, and you need to list all of them. And here are examples of some of those things that you may be putting on your list. Section 8, LIHTC tax credit, tax-exempt bond, home, Section 515, rural development rental assistance, Section 202, Section 236, and there could be others. Then we need the number of units, the age of the property, the type of housing, and then some demographics. And these demographics are just going to be the ones that are in effect at the time you're filling out this application. These do not have to be exact numbers that the date you mail it in, these are the exact numbers on the property. We're just trying to get a general idea about your property. So at the date that you're completing the application, how many children, how many adults and families, how many seniors, and how many disabled resided on your property. And finally, tell us whether your property is rural, suburban, or urban. And then we ask that you identify your NAHMA. Category 1, inspections. 80 points minimum required to satisfy this category. 50 points in the physical inspections and 30 in other inspections. And you have to attach a copy of the most recent written report. And here we have listed all the things that we talked about. If you have a REAC, if you don't have a REAC. Notice number 6. This is for the property that isn't subject to the typical REAC or other third-party inspections. And this tells you how you will be able to meet this requirement, the type of documentation that you will have to include, and also note that if you are falling under Category 6, it asks that you provide at least 10 current photographs showing building exteriors, all the common areas, laundry rooms, community rooms, a sample of unit interiors, grounds, playgrounds, pool, and parking areas. And on page 12, it explains the photo format recommendations. Also, if you're a Category 6 property where you're not subject to the traditional inspections, you will also be asked to include a self-certification letter from a senior officer in the management company who holds a NAHMA certification. Once you've entered everything, you total your points. Again, you have to have 50 points in this category. Then we have other inspections, which has to do with management reviews. And again, we talked about this earlier. These are the various scores that you might have gotten on a management review. They're worth different amounts of points depending on how high your score was. Category 10 is again for the property that is not subject to the traditional third-party management reviews described in 1 through 9 above. And it tells you how you can provide copies of reports to meet that requirement. And notice that also you have to provide a self-certification letter, just as with the physical inspection exception, that will be signed by a senior officer in your management company who holds a NAHMA certification. Here are your totals. Other inspections, these are your management inspections. You have to have a minimum of 30 points. For total inspections, you need a minimum of 80 points. Category 2, financial management. You need 10 points to satisfy this category. We discussed all of these various methods of getting points, and as you can see, they're worth varying amounts of points, but you only need 10. Financial management, minimum points required, 10. Category 3, employee credentials. As we discussed previously, you need 20 points for large properties and 10 points for small properties, and there are separate columns depending on the size of your property. If you're a large property, you're going to be filling in this second column. If you're a small property, you'll be filling in only the third column. These are all the credentials we talked about. And again, 20 points for a large property, 10 points for a small property. And notice that you will need to provide proof of certifications that are not NAHMA certifications. The NAHMA certifications are recorded by NAHMA and they're available in their online credential directory. But other credentials, we would have to have evidence of those credentials and the person who holds them. Continuing on, here are more credentials that will grant you points, and the points granted per credential. Again, a reminder, minimum points, 50 units or more, 20 points, 49 units or less, 10 points. Category 4, programs and services. We went through the list of all the different things that could be included here. A larger property has to have 45 points. There are 5 points per program, so that's 9 times 5 is 45. A smaller property has to have 30 points. Again, that's 6 times 5 points for 30 points. You'll list each program or service, and you will have to provide documentation, flyers or brochures of the programs listed. Here are more ways that you can get points for programs. And again, a larger property has to have a minimum of 45 points. A smaller property has to have a minimum of 30 points. Category 5, endorsements. Here are the categories that we talked about under endorsements and the way that you log in those things, and obviously you have to attach the endorsements that you're using as part of your reports. Minimum points required, 10, regardless of the size of your property. Category 6, photographs and reports. 60 points minimum. This is just backing up everything that you've already submitted in your totals on the rest of the application, but it's just listed separately to show that you're getting points for having those scores, and then you're also getting points for actually submitting the material itself. Your photographs, remember, 6 to 12 with captions, and also notice that some properties may require a minimum of 10 photos based on the inspection section above. Required reports, number 2, that would be your physical inspection reports, your financial reports, and so forth. Minimum points, again, 60. Optional photos or reports. You can submit some additional citations, awards, newspaper articles, etc. A minimum of 4 examples may be submitted for a maximum of total 20 points for this section. It's kind of extra credit. Again, you need 60 points in this category. Let's look at the summary of point totals at the back. Again, the minimum points required for the COQ designation for a 50 unit or greater property, 225 points. For a property of 49 units or less, 200 points. It is possible to achieve 450 points in these various categories. The minimum points needed to qualify for the awards competition is 325. So just to review, if you have 225 points for a large property or 200 for a small property, you will be able to achieve the COQ recognition. If you're interested in competing for a national award, you will have to achieve a minimum of 325 points, and then that gets you in the door to go on and compete for the award, which is a separate process which we will not be going into a lot of detail on today. Here is an example of the self-certification form for properties that are not subject to agency inspections. It's included in the application packet if you need to use it. Again, remember, additional photos are required of applicants who self-certify, and self-certification is also required for properties who are not subject to agency filed audits. When in doubt about this, contact NAHMA if you have one of those properties that requires some additional paperwork. Let's complete a COQ application plan. You need to fill out the application form. Who's going to do that in your organization, and set a target date? Gathering the supporting materials, taking digital photos, organizing the 7-part submission, scanning each part of the submission into 7 files, and we'll go over that a little bit more in a minute. Submitting to the local AHMA as email attachments or by mail to the AHMA on CD, DVD, USB flash drive. Those are your choices. Include an application fee payable to the local AHMA, and you need to check with the local AHMA to see if they accept credit card payments, because some of them do and some of them do not. Refer to NAHMA's eCOQ submission guidelines, and they can be found back on this Communities of Quality Recognition Program page right there, COQ Electronic Submission Guidelines. And this is what appears when you click on that link. Communities of Quality applications are divided into the following parts: application form, Category 1, inspections, Category 2, financial management, Category 3, employee credentials, Category 4, programs and services, Category 5, endorsements, and Category 6, photographs and reports. Let's talk about how to prepare the COQ application in electronic format. It tells you here that you will need to make 7 different electronic digital files. That means basically you're going to scan 7 different files. The first scan will be the application contact information, those first couple of pages of the application form. You're going to scan the application pages that are about inspections, and then you're going to put those inspections behind that in that same scan. Financial management, same thing. You'll take the financial management pages out of the application, put the reports themselves with that, and you'll scan that, and that will be your 3rd scan, which is Category 2. Category 3 is your 4th scan. There you'll have the employee credential pages out of the application, and all of the supporting documentation attached, and that will be scanned. And remember, if they're NAHMA credentials, you don't need supporting documentation because we can go and look online and see if those credentials are current. Category 4, programs and services. You will scan the pages from the application that are about programs and services, and then you will attach all of the flyers and so forth that prove that you held these programs and services. Category 5, endorsements. Again, scan the page on endorsements, followed by the actual endorsement letters or surveys or whatever you have used to fulfill that category. Category 6, photographs and reports. By the time you get down to this, all you'll have left really will be your photographs and any other miscellaneous reports that didn't fit into any of these other categories that you may be submitting for extra credit. And this is just an example of what a submission might look like. Where to send your electronic COQ application. By mail, you can send a CD or a DVD to your local AHMA postal address. By email, you can send it to your local AHMA email. Make sure that you find out your AHMA's preferred form of submission. Some of them may prefer to have you send them the CD. Please name each of the 8 files that represent your complete electronic submission by referencing the property name and the category of the application. Examples: Westfield Apartments app. Westfield Apartments category 1. This is a submission for the inspection category, and so forth. This is how they would like you to name them. Please notice that in the first part you're also supposed to include the point summary chart. How to submit your COQ application fee and approval process. You will submit the electronic application to your AHMA. You must include a check payable to the AHMA in the amount of $150. That's the application fee. If you are not a member of NAHMA or AHMA, it will be a $325 check, but it will still go to the AHMA that is the regional AHMA for that area. Please check with your AHMA, again, to see if they accept credit card payments. And there is a COQ application invoice, which I'll show you in a moment. The AHMA will then review and verify the application is correctly compiled and completed and that the check has been submitted in the correct amount. When they have confirmed that everything is correct, they forward it to NAHMA. NAHMA reviews and approves it and publishes the new COQ property to the NAHMA online COQ directory at the website address. In addition, a confirmation email will be sent and a congratulations packet will be shipped to the new COQ property. This is where you access the COQ application invoice. And this is what it looks like. Again, remember, if you're going to use a credit card, you need to make sure that your AHMA accepts that. This is the NAHMA Communities of Quality process flowchart. First, you apply. When you achieve the recognition, you will promote your property using the welcome kit materials. If you earn COQ recognition for more than half of your company's portfolio, you can become recognized as a COQ corporate partner. Every 2 years, you'll need to renew your Communities of Quality recognition. There is a renewal application and an application renewal fee. More information on the website about that. And then, of course, you can go for the gold. If you have a 325 plus point property, when you complete your recognition application, once you've achieved your recognition, you will be eligible to enter NAHMA's annual National COQ Awards Contest in the fall. For more information on that, go to NAHMA's website. Thank you for taking the time to view this webinar. We hope that you have found it both informational and inspirational. We look forward to receiving your application for Communities of Quality recognition for your property. If you have any questions as you are in the process of putting the application together, please do not hesitate to call NAHMA at 703-683-8630. We look forward to seeing your property's name on the COQ National Registry at the NAHMA website in the very near future.